Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. 16 now. Dad married Linda after Mom died. Linda has a son who's 15 and a daughter who's 13. Dad and Linda were saving college funds for me and Linda's kids through the years. My parents had already set one up, so there were some savings in it pre-marriage to Linda. About a year ago, my dad and Linda started talking about the financial element of those accounts and how much it would really help in terms of college. They're not rich and were disappointed the accounts weren't bigger. It was also brought up that I had more because mine was started earlier than her kids' accounts. To give more context, mine was started when I was born, and Linda only started one for her kids before she married my dad. My mom came from a big family. She was one of 7 children, and my grandparents had done good for themselves. They weren't rich, but they had a home that was mortgage-free, and they both continued to hold jobs. Because I lost my mom, they decided to downsize their home and set up an account for me that would help me through life. My aunts and uncles even contributed small amounts. They all have kids, so couldn't do as much. But it's more than any of my cousins have, and it's more than Linda's kids. Learning about the account made my dad and Linda unhappy. Linda asked if they could allow her and my dad access so they could do what they felt was right. My grandparents said no. Dad asked them why they had done what they had, and why wasn't it discussed with him. They told him it would be given to me when I turned 18, and not a moment sooner, and that they wanted the money to be for me, to do whatever I liked with it. And that as my mom's parents, they did what they felt my mom would want. The whole thing was such a big deal to my dad and Linda that I told them to take back the money they saved for me, but leave what was there before they got married. Dad asked if I would share some of the money from my grandparents with Linda's kids. I said no. I also told him that money saved by him and Mom should still be mine because my mom was not saving for kids he would raise with someone else. Linda and my dad believe I'm too involved and too opinionated, and I'm selfish for not being more giving with Linda's kids. Dad told me he's disappointed, and it's an adult matter that I should stay out of. I think seeing as I was asked to share, I have a right to give input. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your grandparents said no, and until you are 18, nothing else matters. Dad and Linda are being selfish to pressure you into sharing money. If they were that concerned about you being involved in the adult conversation about it, they should have been adults and shut it down without ever asking for you to share. Not the a-hole. You've been more than generous by allowing them to take the money they've saved for you. Your dad should be grateful your grandparents are helping you out. It's ridiculous that they're trying to steal money from their own child. Keep that money for yourself. Do not let them talk you into giving them any. Not the a-hole. If the dad was asking access, it means he was going to take some out of it without ever telling them or you. I would keep a detailed record of what is in your accounts once you start opening things, especially with your dad or Linda as a guardian, because they could very well try to take anything you may have in the future because they'll have access to your account. I know the title may sound weird, and I'll try to explain the best I can. So, during the virus, my wife and I got pregnant, and well, we decided to keep the entire pregnancy a secret until the baby was born. It was mainly because my wife didn't want to jinx it, as she does have some issues that could possibly lead to a miscarriage, or even stillbirth, and being my father's son, I'm big on long-planned surprises. When we were ready to introduce our baby daughter to the family, I realized that my mom's birthday is in a few weeks, and she absolutely adores babies, and has often told us that she can't wait for my brother and I to give her grandchildren. Since the restrictions were picking up, we volunteered to have the party in our backyard. We only invited our immediate family and my in-laws. Well, everything went amazing. My wife and I were able to go inside and check on our daughter frequently since we were playing hosts, and use the phone monitor to keep an eye on things. Finally came the time for gifts. We went last out of courtesy and gave my mom a funny grandma t-shirt, and everyone was so excited that we were going to have a baby. And while my wife was being congratulated, I snuck upstairs to get her. So when my wife asked my mom how excited she was, my mom said she can't wait. And well, I couldn't have gotten a better cue. So I made my entrance showcasing our daughter, telling her she doesn't have to. This is where the room basically got divided. My parents and father-in-law were over the moon. My brother was pretty happy, but my sister-in-law, brother's wife, and my mother-in-law were visibly not happy. While my mom basically took our daughter and refused to let others even see her properly. Both women came to us and told us how it was wrong of us to hide the baby and the pregnancy. My sister-in-law basically told us how we were bad people to make Mom's birthday all about us and our baby, and how it just upstaged everyone's gifts and efforts. My mother-in-law was upset because she wanted to do certain traditions with my wife during her pregnancy, which she wouldn't get to do now. My wife and I tried to explain our reasoning, and even told my mother-in-law that we may have another child in a few years if we decide to have 3. After the party, my mom texted me that it was the best gift ever, and we announced it officially, and again got a mixed response from some friends calling us crazy, in a good way, for being able to keep this a secret. Had baby fever since 19, while some were offended that we didn't trust them enough to disclose this. A few of my wife's friends were upset because they didn't get the opportunity to throw a baby shower and other stuff. Although my wife and I don't think we did anything wrong, the mixed response has gotten us worried that we may have ruffled a few feathers unnecessarily. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. To clear a few things up. We didn't bring the baby out at the end. We got her out during the halfway point where the gifts were opened, and now it would just be meal and chilling. We did it at my mom's birthday because it was the first family gathering and would have been a nice surprise. We didn't exclude my mother-in-law. My daughter's middle name is after her, and the following day we took her to mother-in-law's house to do all the new baby traditions. The main reason for keeping it a secret was because in my wife's past pregnancies, where both ended in miscarriages, our family and friends pushed us into big events in the name of tradition, which contributed to a lot of stress to my wife, and although due to medical conditions, we cannot blame anything for certain, the stress didn't help. Furthermore, my wife didn't want to go through another public miscarriage. Also, I said 3 kids because my wife and I always wanted maximum 3 and minimum 2 kids. But since we've been a big believer in adoption, we've planned to adopt the last kid because being related by blood isn't a big issue for us, and these kids deserve a loving family. Not the a-hole. Given world circumstances and the medical issues you mentioned, not doing all those traditional gatherings was the safest thing. And keeping it quiet was probably literally the only way to avoid the demands to do unsafe social things without being actively rude to people for months during a global pandemic. The people who are saying not the a-hole all have valid points, and I mentally understand and can even agree with them. But emotionally, I keep thinking you're the a-hole. You have unnecessarily hurt a lot of your family and friends. In particular, you made the new baby a gift to your mother. Is your wife's mother not also a grandmother? By making the announcement about your family, you've effectively slapped your wife's family in the face. Maybe I'm empathizing with your in-laws too much, but I'd want to push you under a bus, metaphorically speaking, too, if I was put in that position. I want to say not the a-hole. Your kid, you decide. But if she knew her mom would be hurt, which she obviously was, that was not a great way to go about it. Someday your daughter may grow up and leave you to find out important things about her life as essentially a bystander. Basically, you told your wife's mom that she wasn't important enough to her daughter to be asked about anything, or support her daughter through pregnancy and early days of baby, or even find out before second cousin twice removed. You have publicly announced to mom and everyone else that she and her daughter are not close. I would be devastated if any of my kids did this. Your family might find it funny. Your wife's did not. Likely there will be a permanent rift of hurt feelings there since you won't apologize. Not that they won't love grandbaby, but they'll always know you and wife don't love or respect them or consider them important people in your lives. And to top it off, you publicly presented the baby as your mom's and only your mom's gift, leaving the other grandma and grandpa and family out completely, not even able to hold or see the baby because your mom had her gift. That last part tips it to you're the a-hole. To you it was a joke. To your in-laws it was their daughter and her husband utterly rejecting them as family members. Your kid, you decide. But their reactions are very reasonable and actually pretty understandable. Your mother-in-law is devastated, and they barely said anything. After my mother's death in 2007, my father invested the proceeds of the various life insurance payouts in buying a house in town. He asked me if I'd live there, didn't want to be a real landlord, and at 24 years old, single with a good job, I could afford to cover the mortgage and utilities, so I did. Fast forward to 2015. My sister and her husband and their son are rapidly outgrowing their condo. I'm beginning to want to find a place of my own, and my father is looking to sell the house to support his retirement. We all agreed to a plan in which my sister's family would move in, take the downstairs rooms. I'd go upstairs and let them get their savings together to buy the place. They're paying less rent and lower bills staying here, helping out around the house, etc. The plan was that they'd be able to purchase the house within 3 years. Shortly before they move in, my sister finds out her husband was cheating, so she kicks him out and begins divorce proceedings. At this point, she's paying whatever rent money she can scrape together. I pay the rest of it, and all the utilities except the gas bill, which is just for cooking here. She's also on my cell phone plan, contributing nothing. She makes plans to start some kind of vocational classes, but never gets it together. So last year, she meets a guy. He seems nice, but he's working minimum wage jobs, staying in a buddy's garage, driving a hand-me-down car. He starts hanging around the house a lot, staying over 3 or 4 nights a week. I continue paying the bills, waiting for my sister and him to commit and find their own place. Doesn't happen. Months go by. No change except he's here more and more. My sister continues not to work, and virus pretty much ended her babysitting days. I expressed to my sister that this was a problem for me. Having any kind of guests over that often, having to cover all of these costs for her and her kids, and that I would be looking to move out this year. She doesn't react well, and the overall situation continues to deteriorate. My plan is now to move out by this summer. I told her I would be closing my utility accounts, since I won't live here at that time, and that I'd need her to find a way to get her and her kids their own cell service by the end of the year. Since then, we barely talk. She's always angry unless her boyfriend is over. She smokes in the house. She has people and their kids over daily, and has even locked me out of the house twice. I'm pretty sure she threw away my W-2s, but who knows. So, am I the a-hole for wanting out? Do my years of financial support up to now mean I'm obligated to continue until she's ready to do anything for herself? Not the a-hole. Move out faster if you can. With all of the strangers over, you don't want to lose your health due to her selfishness. Not the a-hole. You are not the a-hole for wanting to close the financial support valve to your sister, her boyfriend, and her friends and all the kids. If she can afford to smoke, she can afford to pay more rent or pick other bills for the household. Leave with a clean conscience. Not the a-hole. And wow, this is a complex emotional as well as financial situation. You have been more than generous in helping support your family, and whatever your sister is going through does not make it right that she's doing nothing to maintain her own situation. I'm 50, male. My daughter is a freshman in college. My son is already 25. Let me just start off by saying I am in no means financially stressed. I've already been retired for 8 years and living off of comfortable money I made through investments. I was also able to pay 100% of son's college tuition costs, plus living costs, and doing the same for my daughter. Now, my son already has a child who's 1 year old. Really reminds me of when I had my son back when I was 25 as well. However, the company my son worked for went bankrupt a month ago, and although my son already got a well-paying contract at a bank, he needs to wait a month. Why? He's filling up a spot at some bank management guy who's going to retire in a month. So in the meantime, I told my son to spend time with his family, and I'm paying all of his family's living costs for just that 1 month time span. On the other hand, my daughter is still with her high school-era boyfriend in college. Now, both my wife and I attempted to tell her we candidly did not think much of her boyfriend, but since she was adamant about her choice, we told her she can pursue that relationship if she takes all responsibility as well. The boyfriend's a shady fellow who uses words like "dat lit dude" and stuff like that, dropping the F-bomb every 2 sentences or so. Anyways, daughter and boyfriend had a consensual decision to have a child in college when none of them have decent income. I know. How dumb can you be? My wife and I tried so hard to convince her. We even flew to her college to warn her after she stopped taking our calls. But alas, my daughter's life is her life. The thing is, my daughter wants money from me now so she can support her child, saying I was shelling out money to her brother anyway. I told her she won't get a cent from me as she made a dumb choice, so it was her responsibility to take care of her. She was livid. I know, my wife and I failed at parenting her, but I still think that it's my daughter who's ultimately responsible for the child at least. So, am I the a-hole? Note, I am already paying 100% of daughter's tuition, plus $23,000 a year for living expenses, which I plan to give her for all 4 years of her college. However, I do not plan to increase that amount just because my daughter had a child. Note 2. Main reason I dislike daughter's boyfriend is because that guy did not try to spend time with me or my wife at all. He only came to us when we summoned him. Now, my son's wife actively called us, checked in with us, asked my wife on advice to get closer with son, etc. That's why I respect son's wife and not daughter's boyfriend. Not the a-hole necessarily for this situation, but the way you write makes you sound like an a-hole in general. Everyone sucks here. Dude, your bias could not be more obvious here. And it's honestly disgusting. You fawn over your son and don't seem to give a rip about your daughter. I wonder why she's making decisions you might not approve of. Maybe because she knows she won't have your approval anyway. Because you already have a darling child you gush over. She can't demand money from you, and expecting you to lay out for her just because you laid out for the other kid is not great. But it really just lays out the disparity more clearly. Don't be surprised if she cuts you out of her life, and fairly soon. She probably doesn't even think you'll miss her. Just FYI, my brother's wife was a perfect mom, wife, daughter-in-law, and could do no wrong. My boyfriend was a thug who'd never amount to anything. Wife is in jail for embezzling from her part-time job at the bank, where she was having an affair with the married bank manager. My boyfriend ended up being a doctor. We did break up. Different colleges make relationships difficult. Just something to consider. My cousin, Mark, and his wife, Patricia, have 2 children, Jennifer and Lexi. School was very difficult for Jennifer. She had many problems with jerks, and traditional school environment just didn't accommodate her learning style. Lexi performed very well in that environment. Lexi was able to skip a grade in elementary school and was considered a violin prodigy. Instead of trying to help Jennifer with her learning struggles or encourage Jennifer's talents, Mark and Patricia would negatively compare her to Lexi. Things like, Lexi has twice as many friends as you, and she's 4 years younger. Or, Lexi skipped a grade and has all A's, yet you're only getting a C in English. Or, Lexi can do things that are actually useful. Mark and Patricia would talk about raising Jennifer and Lexi by saying, the screw-up always comes before you do something great. I would stand up for Jennifer, because Mark and Patricia were clearly hurting her with subtle statements. Mark and Patricia would only respond that we were both being oversensitive, and how their comments were good because they would motivate Jennifer to be as ambitious and advanced as her younger sister. Jennifer and Lexi are now adults. Jennifer moved out as soon as she financially could, and has no contact with Mark or Patricia since. Lexi fell into bad habits when she entered college, and eventually dropped out of the university. She no longer plays violin. Lexi flips off and curses at her parents. She essentially told Mark and Patricia, "Duck you. It's my life and I'm doing whatever the hell I want with it." Because Lexi is no longer fulfilling their expectations or doing things they can boast about, Mark and Patricia are trying to get back into contact with Jennifer. But Jennifer wants nothing to do with them. Mark and Patricia are complaining because after a 4th phone number to contact Jennifer, she had just blocked them previously. Jennifer called them out for only contacting her because Lexi was no longer available. Mark and Patricia tried to get sympathy by saying that they have no idea why Jennifer has abandoned them. I told Mark and Patricia it serves them right that Jennifer wants nothing to do with them. They always made her feel unvalued compared to Lexi. Of course, Jennifer doesn't want to be their golden child now that Lexi has lost their favor. Most of the younger family members agree with what I said, including Jennifer, because Mark and Patricia would have likely never contacted Jennifer if Lexi was still doing what they wanted. But most of the older family members said that I was an a-hole because Mark and Patricia are realizing their mistake, and I'm just kicking them when they're already down. Even if Mark and Patricia were truly sorry for raising Jennifer as if she were less than Lexi, it doesn't excuse them from the consequences of doing it. But the older family members are saying it wasn't the time or place to say what I did. Am I the a-hole? Thank you for standing up for Jennifer. You have the right attitude, and it's not your fault they don't want to be confronted with their gross behavior. Too bad, so sad. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Throw the entire family away, especially Mark and Patricia. That's being crappy parents that play favorites. Jennifer is 10,000% justified in cutting them off, and quite honestly, I hope she ducking crushes everything she pursues in life out of mere spite.